Welcome back to the Fi-losophy podcast. My name is Andrew. This is Tyson, and we are talking about Fi-losophy, financial independence, and philosophy. Particularly, we have been spending the last several weeks talking about Stoicism, what it teaches us about life, but also how that can apply to our financial independence journey. Tyson, thank you for being the master of ceremonies here, or the master of philosophy here, I should say, and just really unpacking how much of this stuff can impact your life. I mean, I think one of the things that's important is recognizing that we're talking about both of these things because money has a deep integrated, it's woven into the fabric of how we exist in the world. We can't get away from it. It's pretty much impossible to fall off the grid and not engage. In fact, one of the tenets of Stoicism I learned from you is that humans are social creatures, that we are interacting with each other. And so much of what we do is tied up and wrapped up in our social interactions. But also, we have a lot more agency in certain areas than we may not have expected. But also, there are a lot of things we don't need to worry about because we have so much less control than we thought. So as we move into this episode here, talking a little bit about, we hit some practical tips last week. We got a few more things. I know you were quoting your favorite philosophers in the Stoic tradition, Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, but you started to bring in some other randos as we talked about their reputations that they have no control over. So you got a couple other randos in here you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. I think I did mention it in the last episode, but I was going back and reading some stuff, and Seneca is a really big. He might even probably, if anyone's read much Stoic philosophy, they probably know more Seneca than Epictetus. I just happen to really like the brazen, dare I say, ballsy nature of.
You dared.
I did.
You dared.
Epictetus and the way he frames things, and he's a former slave. I think he's
an
a
impressive
very
character in history for sure.
Super duper. But I was going through some other ways to frame the messages, and Seneca. I've got two Seneca quotes I actually wanted to start today with.
Who was Seneca, by the way? You have no idea.
I can't remember much.
He sounds Roman.
He was Roman.
And maybe a senator or an orator of Rome. Yeah. I'm going to go out on a limb on that one right there, Tyson.
Yeah. I mean,
Perfect.
I usually like to have dates and firm knowledge, so less is more. And we could just.
You know what? For those who seek tranquility, do less.
I did less.
Move on.
All I did was lift a couple of quotes from the printed page. All right. So I thought this was an interesting quote. The more pleasures a man captures, the more masters he has to serve. And I think about this in people with expensive habits. Actually, we should talk about habits a little bit. We'll do a little segue on habits here. Expensive habits are
Jet
expensive.
Skis.
Yeah, jet skis are. I mean, they're also very fun. But some habits are just collectible habits that
baseball cards.
Yeah. Well, but if you're good at it, right? Maybe you can make some money. But I'm thinking about really super expensive wine. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I was thinking about. Where
I'd like to have that habit.
Okay, that's all right. But okay.
You can challenge me.
Yeah, I
shouldn't have
I guess
that habit.
It's something. I guess it's something.
You just don't have that habit.
I don't have that habit. I mean, I like to drink things that taste good and eat things that taste. Drink things. Yeah. But I think that there's a cultural habit where some of these things go way, way too far. Wine that costs, hundreds and thousands of dollars per bottle. How much are you really getting out of each one of those, $30 sips? I'll just leave that to the audience to make up their own mind. I'm going to read the second quote by Seneca.
You're going to go straight to quote number 2 from Seneca, the Roman, from Roman times.
So, and this is another way to look at, because we talked a lot about material objects and
Yes.
how much does one actually need to actually be happy in life. I think this is a nice quote. You ask what is the proper limit to a person's wealth. First, having what is essential. And second, having what is enough.
Yep.
What is essential and what is enough. Beyond that, it's just, other stuff.
It's just fluff.
And if you're focused on the fluff, you're not going to get to financial independence any quicker, right?
That's a good point.
This is,
Well, okay, so let's talk a little bit essential and enough. Those are two really important, I think, points that there are essentials. There are probably things that you think are enough. One of the things, so I read this book, I think, More Than Enough. And the idea, and I have several of these books that I've read, which asks the question, what is enough? Right? And being able to answer that. I mean, you want to talk about a very important question from a financial independence standpoint. When you're trying to when you're trying to just cover your essentials, it's really hard. And I do want to, be sympathetic. One of the things that I love about On Trajectory, just to kind of highlight the tool that you built, is that it creates an opportunity for anybody, literally anybody. Basic version is free. It's a minor cost for an unlimited, but it allows anybody to start that journey of financial independence. And I think that's a real value because there are people who don't even know how to get started. But there are people who are wrestling with just getting to the essentials. Yeah. Like that's a real thing in the world. And so recognizing that's difficult and that, to go to the Stoic philosophy on actually kind of justice, right? Figuring out how you can do more for everybody, do more for those around you who are struggling to get the essentials. That's something we're going to talk about a little bit here too, but that's important. And we recognize there are people who are struggling to get to the essentials. Yeah. But once you get beyond that, you really need to wrestle with what's enough.
Yes.
You really need to wrestle that
That's
down.
a careful, you should take a hard look at that one.
Because there is so much that we can do unintentionally
that puts us in situations that, are less than good.
Yeah, right? And assumes that we need more.
Yeah.
And right? That assumes that enough is this high number. And it may not be. Those may be luxuries. There's nothing wrong with luxuries.
There's nothing wrong with,
There's nothing that is negative if you choose to purchase luxuries, but understanding what's enough and also wrestling clearly with what's your responsibility. If we're going to take that Stoic philosophy kind of a little bit layer deeper, what is your practical wisdom saying about your moral responsibility to yourself, but also to those around you in your community?
Yeah. Yep. We are going to talk about both of those. But before we get there, I wanted to revisit something from last week. We talked about negative visualization and voluntary discomfort.
Yes.
And I wanted to make sure, 'cause we didn't actually explicitly call this out, but I wanted to make sure that we're doing these things not because we're trying to punish ourselves, not because we're trying to we feel bad that we overindulged or, there's some sin that needs to be paid. No, it's for definitely not that kind of mindset.
Yeah.
It's not like we're not trying to make up for anything. What we're trying to do is, because part of Stoic thought is to understand our emotional state and be able to control our emotional state. It's about recognizing and checking that the things that are emotionally firing us up and giving and have become part of our regular life really deserve to be part of our regular life. Do I really need this or that? Does this thing really, should I really be spending this much on that thing?
Yeah.
Does it deserve all of my money to have that?
And does it dictate all your emotion?
Yeah. Yeah. Should it even have that much space in my head?
Because to your point, you might be willing to spend the money on it, but usually your money is following your emotions. Usually your money ends up following if you don't exercise reason, your money follows your emotions rather than your reason.
Yeah.
And so to your point, you buy the thing because you feel like it, not because
It's the
you
right choice.
really need it
Yeah.
or it's the right choice.
Yeah. So I just wanted to wrap that little discussion in a bow from last week, cover those things. But now I want to talk about what you just brought up. And that is doing some good in the world. And how does, doing good in the world, financial independence, you might not immediately think that those two are compatriots.
I think.
Do you have any?
Well, I would say I think generosity is often the first thing that goes away when you feel scarcity. So when you feel like you don't have enough, and to go back to your first point, if you think
I like where you're going with
right,
this.
if you can't define what's enough, then there's always more that gets added to that. And when that happens,
and then there's
the
no opportunity.
first thing that gets squeezed out is the opportunity to be generous. And so I think the way those things go deeply together is when you can define what's enough today, when you can define what's going to be enough over the long-term trajectory of your life, then you can actually take what is excess. If you are fortunate enough to have excess there, or if you're wise enough to minimize your desire to such an extent that enough is actually a defined thing for you and you've been able to reach that, then that excess gives you an opportunity to do good in the world. And I think generosity gets easily squeezed out by not answering the question of what's enough.
That is, I had not even thought about that angle. And I think that's super interesting. Having spent a lot of time in the financial independence community, I'm going to draw a different kind of connection between doing good in the world and reaching financial independence. But I love that take. That's super cool. But the other angle that I wanted to take on this is that the reason that a lot of people pursue financial independence is because they might not feel good about the companies they're working for. They might feel that they want to be able to spend a little bit more time volunteering. And if they could reach financial independence, they could live a more fulfilled life by doing the things, doing the good in the world. I think that, people that are highly frugal get a bad rap because they think they're cheap. But being frugal might get you on the path of financial independence a little bit quicker, and then you get free. Remember, the word independence is part of financial independence.
Right.
Finance is only part of it.
That's right.
The other half is independence.
Yep.
I get to make my own choices. I get to decide, where do I spend my time? What do I spend my time doing? Who do I get to help? How do I fulfill myself?
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing for the folks in the financial independence community. I always get disappointed when people look at the FI community and think, oh, they're just cheap bastards and they don't want, or they're lazy cheap bastards that don't want to work.
Yeah.
That if you spend any time around folks in this community is definitely not the case. No. These are people that care deeply about each other, that want a fulfilling life. And oftentimes that fulfilling life is about mentoring, helping, and volunteering.
Yeah.
And that is a key part. And that all fits so neatly and tightly into the Stoic mindset that it just makes total sense.
Well, and I think to that point, philosophy allows you to examine your life. And really, when you take time to examine your life from a holistic point of view, you'll start to see where your desires and things are driving you, but also that allows you to have a bit more of a sober-eyed view of what your finances are doing. And when you take emotional control, right, you're actually going to establish the reason over all the emotional kind of turmoil that can happen in a day-to-day life, and you stop worrying about all the things you can't control, you actually start to form some good habits. And I think you're right. People searching for financial independence do well to examine their entire life, to examine the desires that they might have, the reasons why they want to do those things, and recognize that there can be some really, really impactful, powerful, personally meaningful reasons for pursuing financial independence. And there's a lot of tools out there to get you there. There are a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of people who will walk alongside you and help you out.
There are. There's
coach
a
which is
great
super
community,
cool.
great community out there, and community's a huge part of Stoicism.
Well, we are social human beings. Are social.
Yeah. And hopefully, folks will join this community. This is our last episode in the season, right?
This is the final episode of the Fi-losophy podcast, season 1.
Yes,
discussing Stoicism and philosophy, or losophy, as we've been calling financial independence and losophy. But we would love for you to join us on any of the social channels.
Yes.
So we're out there, we're roaming around. We are, we're out there on the Instagrams and the Twitters and check us out on YouTube, follow along.
Smash the like button.
Oh, we didn't say it. Did we really say smash the like button? That's all right. I'm going to be stoic about it. It's cool. Right. I can't control what you say, Tyson. I can't control it at all.
Sorry.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode, this season of Fi-losophy. This is Tyson. I'm Andrew. We will see you guys next time. Thanks so much.
Thanks.